Hello again, welcome to PaintersBlock. I'm your host Anthony Redden, and today we will be going over white marble. Last week we went over some black marble, and this week we're going to go using the airbrush and a little bit of hand to brush combat here. Had a few mistakes, and I just need to fix it up with some hand brush material. So here we have the shoulder pad to a war dog, and you notice that I used a little bit of extra Abaddon black, which I'll show you right here. Just to kind of like glossen up the base coat to our shoulder pad. And so this first part, we're going to use black, white, and some gold. Abaddon black is my preferred type of black, and titanium white is my preferred type of white, but you might want to get a middle tone gray as well for the first step I'm going to be taking. Ash gray is pretty good, but I would recommend knowing what type of consistency you need for an airbrush. And titanium white, like I said, is my favorite white. And then some form of gold. Greedy gold is one of my favorites, but this one is pretty good gold from Vallejo. I couldn't quite get the consistency right. I believe my airbrush has some problems with it right now, so there's some acrylic paint medium in case you need to thicken up or just make it flow better for your airbrush, or even for thinning out your paint in your wet palette. And dryer sheet, I'm trying to use this instead. It's actually not the dryer sheet, it's the I switched it to the Clorox wipes that are dried out. Last time I used the dryer sheets, and I was going to this time, but I know some other people had some better luck with the Clorox wipes, so this time I'm going to use the Clorox wipes. So here you can see I have a gray, and I actually mixed this myself because when I used that ash gray from Army Painter, I couldn't quite get the consistency correct. So I needed to get it all out and then re-clean my brush. And here, you can see here that I'm going to test my airbrush out, make sure that everything's flowing correctly. Make sure to always do this before you start spraying your model, because otherwise you can get some unnecessary pooling and some bad spray patterns. So here you can see I'm just building up some different levels of gray in between the black, so that when we're building up from our different layers of white and gold, we're just trying to make more of a gradient between our blacks and our whites. I kind of noticed someone else was doing this, and I really liked how their marble effect turned out. Unfortunately, one side of this will turn out pretty well just from the airbrush, and you'll notice that, but the other side I'll have to do some hand painting and then put it together. So here you can see how I get it together is I get a little putty, I get the magnet, and I made my own little stand here. It has some magnets in there that I drilled in and glued in, so I can just kind of plop things on there when I need to paint. But otherwise, you can use tape and whatnot. I just noticed that when people use tape, it always took a really long time for them to take it off, which always kind of annoys me, and I need a little bit more expedience in my life. So I chose to use this magnet method. I really prefer it, and it still gets things pretty tight, although maybe that might have been what went wrong. I do believe, though, my airbrush just started spurting out, and I need to get a new one. So if you have any good recommendations on airbrushes, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you like or what you've heard is really good, because I really need to upgrade my airbrush game. So here you can see I'm grabbing the dryer sheet that I've kind of spread apart and ripped apart just to make different threading. So that's going to give the kind of imperfection to the marble effect that we're going to be using. We had this in the last tutorial from last week with the black marble, but this time it looks a little bit more veiny because we're using the Clorox wipes that are dried out. Now, I do believe I kind of like these Clorox wipes a little better than the dryer sheets, but they both kind of work. So this next step, we're adding a little bit more white, and if you like what we're doing so far, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out in the channel and kind of helps me get this content pushed out to you. And maybe hit that notification bell so you can keep up and know when I push some stuff out. I'm not always super consistent on the days, but I'm going to be getting one video out a week at least, and some update videos. And if you follow me on Instagram, I always post updates on what I'm painting and some new intel on what I've learned. If you want to follow me there, I'll put a link down below. But here you can see I'm just making volumetric gray spraying, so I'm basically using a little bit of a brightened up gray to go around the edges with our threading involved. And then here I'm making my own gold spray because the Vallejo spray wouldn't spray through the brush. And I think this is where my brush started having some kinks in it. So here's where I kind of spray it in. And it doesn't look too bad, but as you can see later, it was too runny and I couldn't notice it because it was underneath the thread. But we're going to fix that later. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now, before I figure out that we have any problems here, I'm leaving the Clorox wipe on instead this time, just kind of experimenting with another style that I saw where he didn't take it off. I do believe that when you don't take it off longer, it does leave a nicer effect and you won't accidentally scrub the paint, so you should leave it on there a little bit longer than taking it off right away and then putting it on. So here you can see I put the white back over and it looks really nice on the left side, and on the right side it sprayed poorly, and I believe the gold pulled too much and the white didn't really cover anything. So I'm going to try to fix this with a couple of airbrush maneuvers, which I will show you right now, and these could work. I would recommend trying this out first in case your problems aren't as bad as mine, but they do not work quite well enough for my liking. I may have needed to leave it there longer, but I will leave that to you and what you believe might have gone wrong in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you believe could have fixed this kind of problem for me. Maybe I didn't hold it tight enough to the side. I'm kind of leaning on the side of where my airbrush has been kind of sputtering whenever I spray certain paints, so I've been trying to clean it out more often, but it doesn't seem to be working. So I'm thinking about upgrading and maybe trying to get a little bit better of an airbrush. This is kind of a cheap one. So here you can see I kind of gave up. I'm just saying, okay, you know what, that gold section needs to go away. It looked dirty, it looked messy, it didn't even really look gold, it looked kind of too yellow, so I'm going to just spray it with some white and clean it up. So here we're going to go back over after it dried. I put the Clorox wipe back over, spread it around, make it real nice and tight this time. I'm having a feeling, okay, let's make sure that nothing goes wrong. I'm going in with the black and I'm going to try to reset my layers. Now this does kind of work, but once again, I do believe I take it off a little bit too early. I waited about 2 to 3 minutes, but I probably should have waited more like 10 to 15 minutes. But it could have looked alright this way, maybe if I had let it sit, but I wanted to keep messing with it just for you all, and kind of so you can see what happens when you keep trying to fix these mistakes with the airbrush. So here I'm going in with another layer of the black, and let's just see how this looks. Peel it away. It's been about 2 to 3 minutes, and it's looking nice. The fade's about correct, but I'm not really liking the pattern. That little circular thing going on isn't quite my deal. So I'm going to try to go back in there, and I'm going to go in with a little bit of the white and try to create some more of a white marble, because it's looking a little bit dark on this side. So we're going to go in, hit it with the white, and this kind of help us if we need to go back in there, which I'm going to. Kind of blank out the slate so that we don't have to worry about it, kind of like whiteout. So as you can see, it was sticking too much as I peeled, and I shouldn't have peeled it right away. So it kind of ruined the whole side, and I kind of messed it all up. So now I have one really good side, one not so good side. What am I going to do? I'm grabbing some Abaddon Black, I'm grabbing some Retributor Gold, I'm grabbing some acrylic paint medium. I'm going to grab a really fine detail brush and a not so fine detail brush, but mostly I'm going to use this fine detail brush. I'm going to use the black and start going in. Now I'm going to go over the side that's really good, and I'm going to start making patterns in there in lines and trying to just create the same patterns on both sides. So basically I'm trying to memorize or duplicate the patterns that we've gotten from the airbrush and the Clorox wipe, and duplicate that onto the other side with our brush. Now this isn't so easy, and I do mess up a couple times, and we do have some good strokes right here, and then if occasionally it pulls a little too much. This is going to take some practice and some real fine work, and as you can see, sometimes you get it quick enough you can smudge it, which is really nice because you can actually create some gray areas, because what you want is What causes it not to look so realistic when you're drawing these marbly stains is that you need less of a harshness between the white and the blacks, which is kind of why I'm going in with this gold as well, because it creates an interesting look. You can go inside of the blacks and then you can start outlining the gold with the blacks and working your way around that, building the whites and kind of just evening out the look of this chaotic marble. As you can see, I'm starting to create an image from what I can see is already in there from what we've laid with the airbrush, but it's going to take a few tries. I'm going to build up some shade on the corners because I notice on the other side we have some nice shading in the corners as well. And I'm really lightly using whatever paint. If I'm running out of paint, I'm making lines and veins through the really big thick portions. I'm creating an outline to our art piece. As you can see, I'm trying to copy it. I have a little too much on the right side going on. It's a little too cluttered. So I'm going to kind of go in and erase some of it later on. But it's okay because if we're building in all these details, it's easy to get rid of them. It's harder to add them in like later. So just keep building. You can build little nice lines, erase them, go back over. I would recommend trying to make kind of angular lines that aren't too straight. Still crooked in very angular ways, so not too curved, but not too straight. I know it's kind of awkward saying that, but that's how you make an imperfect looking marble line through. Because they won't be too, like this moon circle thing I have going, I don't really enjoy it. So I'm gonna start working on getting rid of it with the whites here. And just whiting it out, bringing in the blacks, graying it out, making some less harsh transitions. And it's starting to look a little bit better, but as you can see, I got rid of the moon. I was done with the moon. So we got rid of it, we whited it out, and now we're gonna make straight, not super straight, not curved, crooked little lines. The cracks almost, if you will, through the marble. I'm using a bigger brush now, so it's wet and kind of making more of a gray stain, so it leaves less of an impact, and then I go in with the sharp brush to make the sharp lines. Hey, sorry for the fuzziness of the screen. I'm going to try to get a little bit closer for this, but as you can see, you just kind of fine detail some lines, and once you do, you kind of spread it out and make it gray. You make it so that it's less contrasty, and then you build back into the veins you wanted. Kind of the first veins you painted. There we go, that's looking a lot better. So you start building into the veins you like, and once you do, you can start grabbing your gold, whatever gold you like. I'm starting to really like this Retributor Armor Gold from Citadel. It lays very nicely, and it looks very stoic and regal, and it looks very good for this marble. So here's our finished product after I've kind of glamored it up on the sides and whatnot and made the frame. Always finish the frame. It never looks good without the frame, so don't judge it till you finish the frame around it. And always use some Brilliant Shine gloss. This is the secret sauce. In fact, do this before you do the frame because it'll actually save the marble. If you make any mistakes and you paint over the marble, it's easy to get rid of as long as you have this gloss. If you don't have the gloss, then it's a little bit harder. But here, I'm going to do another step just so you can see it, because it doesn't really matter if I put another layer of gloss. That's looking nice and shiny. Ooh. Yeah, that's pretty good. For a hand-painted marble, that's not bad. And now the airbrush one looks pretty great, and I would suggest just using the airbrush, but if you need a hand brush, you need to fix it, here you go. And if you could please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I hope we helped you break your painter's block this week. And visit us again next week.